Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. Commission Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Eckert.
Here.
Commissioner Boatright.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Brinkman.
Present.
Commissioner Urquhart.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I have a friendly reminder for all that we are continuing to provide a live stream of our open meetings for the public to view from their home or office. If you are speaking, please make sure you speak into a microphone and the microphone is on so the viewers may hear what is being said. We're going to start our meeting today with a brief safety emphasis. Michael Todd, District Safety and Health Manager, is going to share with us what we need to do in case of an emergency today. Michael?
Is this thing on? Okay. Promise I'm the real Michael Todd. Apparently there's been a couple of impersonators the past ones. So with that, a few safety reminders. In the event of a fire, the commission director and commission secretary will exit the rear of the room, out the back door in the conference room 101, the sidewalk, Jefferson Street. The audience will exit through the doors to the lobby, out the back of the building entrance by the loading dock, and then proceed the sidewalk on Jefferson Street. An alternative exit is down the stairs and out through the main entrance. Please walk up the hill on Jefferson Street until it is safely out of the back parking lot and the safe distance from the building emergency response vehicles. In case there's a small fire, there is a fire extinguisher in the rear corner of the room. By the AV podium, I've asked Scott Roots to retrieve and use the fire extinguisher if needed. In the event of a severe weather, everyone should head to the center stairwell and go down as far as possible. If we must evacuate this room, please take a moment, make note of who you are sitting next to, and make sure that upon your arrival to the designated safe location that your neighbor has arrived safely to. If there's a medical emergency, most people in this room hopefully are CPR certified, and if you're not, let me know. We can get you some classes. I have got Linda Horn, who has volunteered to call 911 and direct emergency responders to our location at 105 West Capitol Avenue. Eric Schrader is volunteer administer CPR, and Becky Omeroth will assist if necessary. And there's an AED in the hallway just across this room. I have put Jay Wonderlook in charge of that to retrieve it in case of medical emergency. And that concludes Safety Minute. Thank you.
Thank you to the real Michael Todd. Some of you have noted we have a vacancy at the dais today. Brian Treese resigned his appointment as a member of the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission. Brian was appointed by Governor Parson in August of 22 and approved by the Senate in January of 2023. We will miss his contributions to this commission and wish him the best. Next, I need to review a few procedural items. I want to remind everyone that we have a public comment period, and we are pleased to offer this to every Missourian that wants to come before the commission to address an issue of concern. Any of you that would like to address the commission, please sign up before 10 a.m. A reminder that you will have 5 minutes for public comment or 10 minutes per subject. Abstentions. Next, I will need to review our abstention process. There are commissioners that, because of land ownership or business interests, or the lawyers may represent clients that may either have some relationship to a matter coming before the commission and may have a conflict or potential conflict or actual conflict of interest to be considered or voted upon. The commission member will indicate if he/she chooses to abstain from voting or to recuse himself from participating in discussion of an agenda item. If an agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or the like, a commissioner may specify that particular matter and then still vote on the remainder of the agenda item. This information is provided to the commission secretary by a letter in advance of the meeting. The commission secretary will duly indicate the abstentions or recusals accordingly in the minutes of the meeting. Madam Secretary, have the necessary letters been prepared? Thank you. The first item of business is an action item on the agenda is to consider the minutes of the regular meeting on March 8th, 2023, and the special meeting on March 7th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by the same sign. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Number 2, our action item is consideration of items on the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed under items removed from the consent agenda. All items not removed from the consent agenda will be approved without discussion by a single action taken by the commission. A commissioner may abstain from voting on an item on the consent agenda without removing it by specifying the item number and his desire to abstain prior to the vote. Does anyone need to remove any item for discussion later or abstain from an item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be abstaining on the recommendation for final order on rail guideway systems.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Anyone else? Do we have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have committee and board reports. Commissioner Brinkman and I serve on the audit committee. Commissioner Brinkman serves as the audit chair, and he will give the today's report.
Mr. Chairman, there is no report. The next audit committee meeting will be May of 2023.
Thank you, Commissioner Brinkman. Commissioner Boatwright and I serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee, and Commissioner Boatwright will give today's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the General Assembly enters its final 6 weeks of the 2023 legislative session, I would like to focus this morning on a few problematic transportation-related measures as part of my committee report. These proposals include a measure that lessens the importance of local planning process by allowing the legislature to direct where and how transportation funds are spent on transportation projects, a measure that would require MoDOT to publish its cost estimate and project completion date for any work on state highway system at the close of contract bidding, a measure that would allow for MoDOT's fiber optics to be used as a network to serve unserved and underserved areas of Missouri, which is a violation of MHTC's constitutional authority, and an omnibus proposal that makes numerous changes to the use and collection of the 12.5 cents per gallon fuel tax increase passed in the 2021 as outlined in SB 262. These proposed changes to the statute and the state's constitution could mean less available funding for the future of road and bridge projects. These changes to the public policy could also mean reduced flexibility for the commission and for MoDOT to spend resources based upon our planning partners' needs. MoDOT continues to raise great concerns with key members of the legislature's planning partner and the construction industry that these initiatives could impact the amount of funds collected from the state's fuel tax, which have already been committed in the current 5-year statewide transportation improvement program. While it's fortunate at this time that a majority of these bills have not yet passed their respective chambers, the Commission takes these proposals very seriously and will continue to engage in conversations with the bill sponsors and the House and Senate leadership to explain impacts these proposed changes will have on the distribution of transportation funds. On another note, I'm happy to report that Senator Jason Bean and Senator Greg Razor just last week were able to debate and pass out of the Senate a version of the distracted driving legislation. We're very excited that has some movement in this session. Senate Bills 56 and 61 promote safety by disallowing drivers of all ages from using electronic wireless communication device while driving a motor vehicle. As safety advocates, we are excited to see that a version of this legislation has been debated on the Senate floor this session. We'll continue to work with the Hands Free Missouri to advance this legislation across the finish line this year. Finally, during the director's report, Patrick will have more to comment regarding the activities of the legislative session, including a budget update on the governor's proposal of using $859 million in general revenue to make systematic improvements along I-70 across the state. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatwright. Commissioner Smith serves as president of MTFC, and I am a board member. Commissioner Smith will provide the report for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have a report. The next meeting is scheduled for May of the 23, so hope to have a good report next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith, Boatright, and I serve on the Emperor's Board. Today, Commissioner Boatright will provide the report.
Mr. Chairman, there is no report. Our next board meeting is scheduled for April 28, 2023, and I believe that's an as-needed meeting. So if we end up having a meeting, I'll report next month.
Thank you. Commissioner Brinkman serves on the Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety Executive Committee and will provide a report today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As of Sunday, April 2nd, there have been 166 traffic deaths in Missouri so far this year. While that's 22% reduction compared to the same time this period last year, it still amounts to 2 lives lost every day on our roadways. As we enter into the spring season and more traffic on our roads, including motorcycles going 90 miles an hour down Highway F, in case there's a state trooper in the room, we must all remain committed to the 4 actions of the Show Me Zero, and that is buckle up, phone down, slow down, drive sober. Everybody, buckle up, phone down. So in April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. It is timely move last week. Missouri Senate gave us approval to Senate Bill 56, as I just mentioned, would prohibit the use of handheld electronic devices. We're hopeful the House will follow suit and to get the passage of this bill a significant step toward changing the culture of highway safety in Missouri. Also last week, the state's first ever Buckle Up, Phone Down Business Showdown wrapped up with nearly 1,300 pledges from employees across 32 different businesses. That's wonderful. On April 24th, the coalition partner will join AAA to raise awareness of distracted driving and recognize winners of the Buckle Up, Phone Down showdowns for both high schools and employers. We look forward to recognizing the winners at that event. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Brinkman.
Mr. Chairman, we're having some technical difficulty with our streaming. If we could pause for just a moment so we can get
Sure.
that back up.
Sure.
It does.
We're going to go ahead and continue on. I think everybody's had time to check their email and their Snapchat. So our next item is on the agenda is MoDOT Director Patrick McKenna's report. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, everybody that's here, thanks for being here. To follow up on the legislative report from Commissioner Boatright, yeah, we're very excited that the discussions that have been had with the leadership of Governor Parson to place a budget item for segments of the I-70 project, get the ball rolling, get one of these big, large infrastructure issues that the state's been grappling with but hasn't been able to fund for many decades. Conversations are going on. I think people are aware that the House Budget Committee lined that item out of the budget, but essentially what they're doing is they're substituting that and bringing it back forward, we believe, as a budget action in the capital improvements budget. Some of the discussion that's been held in the House about that is looking at additional or other regional priorities as well. A lot of discussion has been held regarding the Commission's unfunded needs process that the Commission had instructed the department to originate now about 4 years ago. So we're multiple years into that great additional planning process that is yielding, I think, great benefits to the state. It's communicating the needs that are out there that the available funds do not provide for. And that's creating a very robust discussion among policymakers, and I think that's just a wonderful thing to have happen during this time. I was able to testify Monday before the House Budget Committee that had some questions about the application or potential of federal funds for the I-70 project. I related that we're certainly intending to apply for discretionary grants as they become available. We've had conversations with members of our congressional delegation who are supportive of that idea. But in general, the allocated funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act have already been committed to the statewide transportation improvement program, and there aren't allocated funds to bring into the project. So I think it's good to have that discussion with policymakers so that we can be hopeful for additional federal funds, but we have been very clear that there's not a commitment that additional federal funds would add to this project. And even with that, I think the discussions have gone on to highlight the importance of the project, the unique period of time we're in with general revenues in the state's coffers. And so we're very encouraged by the discussion that's been going on thus far. We're also very encouraged by the good discussions we've had about the potential infusion through the budget of $25 million of general revenue for railroad crossing safety improvements. And I'm pleased and hopeful that that will continue on pace through the budget process as well. We are looking at setting a fairly aggressive plan to eliminate the passive crossings on passenger rail in this state. And we're receiving a lot of good feedback about that, and more to follow. Certainly, we can't presuppose the action of the General Assembly and the signature of the governor, but we're encouraged by what we've seen so far. So, so far, so good in the budget. We'll continue to report out. Next month will be our last report out on that before the budget is passed, and we move on with the legislative session. So with that said, one of the things we like to do, it's always a pleasure, particularly in light of our employment issues and things that we have, but it's always a pleasure to have people step up to the table, take on additional responsibilities, and we're going to introduce a new member of our senior management team, and our Chief Financial Officer, Brenda Morris, is here to do the introduction. Brenda?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. It is my privilege to announce Jason Volkart as our new Information Systems Director. Jason previously served as the Assistant Information Systems Director for the past 3 years. Jason has over 25 years of experience in the information technology field, and prior to joining the department, he served as the Field Solutions Engineer for SHI International and in several different roles with the Office of Administration. Jason holds a bachelor's degree in computer information systems from Columbia College and several other IT professional certifications. Would you all join me in welcoming Jason to his new leadership role?
Really pleased to have Jason here. You know, as you know, we just had the retirement announcement of Beth Ring. Did a wonderful job for us in IS, and Beth did a terrific job bringing Jason on board, and he's really hit the ground running since he's been here. We are very, very fortunate to have Jason here leading our IS division, and pleased that you would step up to that additional responsibility. It's been coming at him left and right since he took over just a couple weeks ago. So really glad for that. You know, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, all MoDOT employees will be participating in spring meetings. This is an annual event focused on safety training with groups of employees gathering in person to review key aspects of our safety requirements. This year's training includes instruction on typical applications for working in the lanes of traffic, on the shoulders and on the roadsides, the use of protective vehicles, including truck-mounted attenuators, lockout, tagout procedures, emergency preparedness, employee conduct, and basic behavior on the job, and drug and alcohol abuse training. Last summer, we created the Safety Response Team, modeled after the successes we had with our pandemic response team. The Safety Response Team enables quick decisions with executive and senior leadership to protect the health of our team. The team was the logical next step to tackle multiple safety areas that needed additional attention as we transitioned out of the pandemic. The 6 sections of the SRT are led by senior management team members, and the core team is comprised of subject matter experts from across the state, including field professionals. This team is the equivalent of having 30 quick action teams going at the same time. The benefits to this in less than a year, we're already seeing multiple benefits as several of the spring safety training topics have been developed by the sections of the safety response team. We're committed to continuous safety training and focus on safety as our core value. And this focus really brings to light how much I value the service of every employee, every single person at MoDOT. I know the commission does as well. MoDOT's not the roads we maintain. It's not the buildings we work in. MoDOT's the people who work together to serve Missourians. And that is certainly in our minds as I want to bring up, and we want to celebrate the life of several active employees that we've lost in the last month. 5 active employees to personal illnesses. Each one of these individuals was part of this team, part of our daily work lives, and they're part of the MoDOT family. And I want to take a moment to share some information about each of them and kind of dedicate this meeting to them. So the first is Dale Hellering. Dale passed away March 4th at the age of 64. He was a senior maintenance worker at the Jefferson City Maintenance Building. During his 21 years at MoDOT, he also worked at the Jamestown Maintenance Building. He was a lifelong farmer in his community of California, Missouri. He's survived by his mother, 2 sons, Justin and Jason, and 2 daughters, Amy and Angie, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, family, and friends. Roy Shoemaker passed away March 16th, 2023 at the age of 51. Roy was a leader within MoDOT in the St. Louis district for well over 20 years, serving as the district support services manager, general services manager, and was most recently a supervisor in planning and local programs as transportation project designer. Roy positively impacted the MoDOT St. Louis office as well as those he worked with across the state. Roy is survived by his wife, Erin Shoemaker, and 4 children, Joshua, Cecilia, Aiden, and Rogan. Scott Lyons died March 21 at the age of 62. Scott was a senior maintenance worker at the St. Robert's Maintenance Building, where he worked his entire 22 years at MoDOT. He was an avid hunter and fisherman, but his greatest treasure was his grandchildren. Linnell Luther. Linnell Scobie Luther died surrounded by family and friends on March 25th, 2023 in Lee Summit, Missouri, after a short illness. She was 58. She earned a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Missouri at Columbia in 1988 and was part of a long family line of civil engineers, along with her father, 2 brothers, and 3 nephews. Linnell started as an intern in MoDOT's St. Louis district in 1986, went on to hold various roles in the Southeast and Kansas City districts before becoming district maintenance engineer in Kansas City in 2016. Linnell was known for her leadership and partnership with MoDOT team members across the state. She also had a reputation as an avid angler who loved to try out new streams and was often described as the best female fly fisherwoman in Missouri. She's survived by her husband, James Luther. Bryce Gamblin. Bryce was a senior administrative counsel. He passed away on Sunday, April 2, 2023. He was employed by the department for over 26 years. He started as a legal intern in the chief counsel's office in May 1995. He started working full-time for the department as an assistant counsel in November 1996. He worked out of the regional counsel's office in St. Louis. Bryce was known for his knowledge of the law pertaining to delivering projects and the details of design build contracting. If I could ask for a moment of silence, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any discussion regarding Patrick's report?
Not really discussion. Patrick, thank you for your report. It's so sad to see these people at such young age when you look at Bob and I. And it's tough on family and friends and that guy that his most treasured gift is his grandkids. I know what he means. And it's just hard to lose a member of your team that you work side by side, you spend more time with at work than you do at home with your family. And it's just sad, and we need to keep these people in our thoughts and prayers at this difficult time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So as an intern, when I was in college, Linnell was my boss. And she knew how to get things done. She was a hard worker, made me proud to want to be an engineer, getting to be around her. So I'm totally shocked at this. I did not know she passed. And she'll definitely be missed in the department. It was funny, one of the first snowstorms as a commissioner, I was on the call, and I didn't, we lost contact, didn't realize she'd moved up to the Kansas City district, and she pops up in the call.
That's right.
And it kind of made me stand up straight. I'm like, oh, Miss Linnell's on the call. But no, wonderful engineer, and I appreciate you recognizing these 5 team members, and sure hate that we've lost them.
You know, Chris Redline related to me last week. He said he was able to go and see Linnell in the hospital, and he said as soon as she saw him, she said, now the rock that we've got in this area, we need to send it back. And she had a list of things for Chris that she relayed to him. It's just amazing.
I'm not
It's really
surprised.
amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Patrick, for your report. Next item on the agenda is an action item. Travis Kessner, State Design Engineer, will present bids for our consideration. Travis?
Good morning, Commissioner, Chairman Ecker, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I'm here to present the bids from the March 17th, 2023 bid opening, in which MoDOT received 68 bids on 25 calls. We recommend the following to you today, and that is to award all calls to the lowest responsive bidder except for call F06 located in the St. Louis District. We recommend rejection of call F06 due to excessive bids per section 102.15 of the Missouri Standard Specifications. In addition, a job near Silver Dollar City was bid on February 28th, 2023 and received 1 bid. This is a MoDOT cost share project at the intersection of Indian Point Road and Route 76. We recommend the commission concur in the award of that project as well to the lowest responsive bidder. Those are our recommendations to you today.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Travis? Patrick, you have anything? Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The bid recommendations are approved. Travis, you got a budget update?
Yeah, today's awards result in the state's fiscal year total to date of $1.59 billion worth of work, which is 18.4 or 246.5 million over budget. So we're below that 20% mark for inflation, which is good. It's a little bit below the national average, but still it's a lot of money that we're still dealing with of rising prices. So 1.6 billion, that's a lot of work out there. So,
Thank you, Travis.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Kevin Volay, CAD Support Engineer, will be presenting today. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commission members, Director McKenna. I'm happy to be here to report on MoDOT's real-time network. I am Kevin Ballett. I do work in the central office design division. I'm in the CAD section, and I'm the CAD support engineer. I'm the guy with all the fancy toys and expensive toys. Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to kind of give an overview or the benefit of the real-time network. And I was going to kind of do that from a surveyor's point of view. So if we go back in time, back before we had the network, say we went back when we did conventional surveying, survey crews were a size of about 4 or 5 people in a survey crew. And that's kind of large compared to what we have today. You know, back in the day, you'd have a survey crew chief, you would have an instrument operator that'd work something like this total station. Before that, you might have a theodolite. You would have a field book guy writing the field codes in. You'd have a couple people running around with prisms on prism poles, and they'd be shooting that in. But compared to today, with our real-time network, you can actually have a survey crew of just 1 or 2 people using an instrument like what we have there. So I was going to try to explain what a surveyor kind of goes through out in the field. And so say we have a surveyor out in the field, and he has an instrument like we have here. That instrument can, which is called a rover, can see the satellites in the sky. And it gets readings from those satellites, but there's a problem. There's distortion in the atmosphere that causes about a 3 to 6 foot error. And so the surveyor can do a couple things. He can set up a localized base like we used to do back before our network, or he can connect into our network. And our network is statewide. It's got 83 reference stations, and so he will be somewhere within our network. And each of those reference stations has the same kind of problem that the rover has. They're 3 to 6 foot off. But there's a difference. Those reference stations have established known coordinates that we've set up on them. And so those reference stations will feed that information along with the distortion that it sees from the satellites into our real-time network, okay? And the real-time network will use those distortions from each reference station. It'll use the known coordinates from each reference station and use that information to calculate corrections for the users of our network. So say the surveyor wants to connect into our network. What he'll typically do is he'll connect via a cellular connection. And then the first thing that the real-time network does is it calculates a virtual base that is very close to the surveyor. If our surveyor gets too far away from that virtual base, it'll calculate a new virtual base, okay? The next thing it does is using input from the surrounding reference stations, the real-time network will compute and send corrections. And that rover, or the surveyor, the rover will consume those corrections real time. So he's out there shooting a shot, sends it into the network, sends a correction back instantaneously. Okay. Now there's 2 things about those corrections. The corrections use the entire network to calculate them. So we got 83 reference stations currently on our network. It'll use every one of those reference stations to calculate the correction. The other thing you got to understand with the network is it will only use the common satellites that the rover sees, the surveyor's rover, and what our reference stations see, only the common ones. So that's kind of important, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. So let's talk about our real-time network. We have 83 stations. 73 are owned by MoDOT, and most of those are on maintenance facilities and RE offices. We have 10 of those stations are partners with MoDOT. We've got 7 with the state of Iowa. We have 1 down in the city of Jonesboro, Arkansas. We have 1 with the state of Tennessee, and 1 private entity out of St. Louis. Now, the one thing I will say about Jonesboro, that one will be going away. Arkansas does have a network, and we're hoping to connect into their network. And when that happens, we'll get 5 more reference stations along the southern border. The other things of kind of importance is the state of Kansas and Illinois do not have networks, so there's nothing to really connect into on the east and west side of the state. Nebraska is working on theirs, and we're hoping to connect into theirs once we get theirs, or once they get theirs up and running. The initial setup occurred back in the 2008-2010 timeframe, and a base station is made up of a couple things. One of them is an antenna. It's a concrete monument that looks just like that there. It has a 1-foot diameter column. It's 8 foot above the ground. The footing or foundation is 10 foot deep. It's not 3 foot that's listed there. It's actually 2 foot in diameter. And it has an antenna on the top of it. And I've got one of those antennas right here if you want to look at it later on. And then the other thing that was added, and this was kind of added after the fact, is lightning suppression at the antenna and inside the building. When we first set this system up, we were having probably one reference station a month go down due to lightning strikes. And so we kind of had to go back to the drawing board, and we brought in an electrical engineer, and he added at least 4 points of lightning suppression on the system, and it's a rarity that any of our stations go down now due to lightning strikes. So the other thing that we have at a base station is a GNSS receiver. This is the latest one that we've been installing. We started this back in 2020. The nice thing about these Trimble alloys is that they can see a lot of constellations. These are going to be the ones that we're going to be supporting. It can see other satellite constellations, but these are the four big ones. Now, when we started the installation back in 2008, 2010, we had a receiver that looked like this. This is a NetR5. The difference between this one and that one is this receiver can only see GPS and GLONASS, so it's a lot less satellites that you can see with this one. And we still have about 9 of these still in operation. We're hoping to replace these pretty soon so we get the added satellites. The newer one of this one is called a NetR9, and the NetR9 can also see GPS, GLONASS, and Galileo, so again, more satellites. So we're hoping, again, to get rid of these fairly soon. So what are the benefits of using the MoDOT RTN? Well, the biggest thing is a surveyor does not need a localized base. That's an expensive piece of property. He doesn't need that. He doesn't have to worry about setting that up. Doesn't have to worry about control on the site. If he doesn't have control, he'll have to set up control. It takes time and effort to do that. So none of that, you have to do that if you're on a real-time network. The other thing is that if they use our real-time network, you can't get too far away from that virtual base. Remember earlier I said if you get too far away from the base, that base will get recomputed automatically, and that distance is about 3/4 of a mile. So, and that's important for mobile and autonomous applications. Measurements can be survey quality if you have the right piece of equipment. If you have something like what I have here, you can get survey quality with it on the network. Say you're using that piece of equipment and you're off the network, you're going to get, again, like I said, 3 to 6 foot accuracy. If you're on our network, you're going to get less than 1/2 inch accuracy horizontal. Vertical's about double that. If you use a lesser equipment, like a GIS device, off the network, that device is about 10 foot accurate. On the network, you get less than 1 foot accuracy on that, under 1 foot accuracy. Cost of the MoDOT real-time network. The initial cost was about a $2 million investment back in 2008, 2010. There are yearly costs with the system. There's a software cost, which is about $60,000. We have servers over in OA; those are about $18,000. The receiver replacement, we assume these things will last about 10 years. And so we got 73 stations, and a receiver costs about $17,000. So that's about $124,000 that we spend yearly average on receiver replacement. And then we have a person that runs around the state keeping the system up and running. We got a map down in the CAD support section that tells us that the system's healthy. If there's a station that's down, we know where it is and we can go check it out. So the total cost is a little over $250,000 per year to maintain the system. Now, I talked with, I did a little research before I did this presentation. I talked to George Kopp, and George Kopp was the CAD services engineer back in the day when they created the system, and he said the original assumption for the system when the network was set up was that it would pay for itself in savings of equipment and survey personnel. And we still believe that is true today. That savings in personnel and cost easily pays for the system. So who uses the MoDOT network? As of last month, we had 1,902 users registered to the network. Roughly, we're 60% surveyors, 20% were agriculture, 20% were utility. And here are some of the functions that use our system. And MoDOT is a heavy user of the network, so MoDOT personnel. Interesting, over the years, we've had some interesting uses of the network. Mizzou, their agriculture department has rovers on their cows, and they actually use our system to track the grazing habits of their cows in their fields. This is one user. We have a couple commercial mowing companies using our system with autonomous mowers. There's a water skiing tournament in Lake St. Louis. They used it to lay out their course and track the boaters as the race went on. I don't know if you remember back in 2017, we had that solar eclipse. Well, we had a bunch of Boston University students come to CAD support with their faculty, and they talked to us about using the system, and they wanted to study the ionosphere. That's the layer of the atmosphere that causes the greatest distortion in the GPS signal. Oh, and then one other thing. Just last week, we had a company, a robot delivery company called DaxBot, register onto our network. So expect maybe a robot delivery coming to your house soon. So the administrators of the network are Jim Copeland. He's our land surveyor coordinator. He works out of the CAD support office. And Melvin Dissler, he's the guy that runs around to all the locations in the state. He's actually back in the back of the room there. And Melvin was actually present when the network was created back in 2008, 2010, and he was kind of responsible for most of the sites being built. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If it's too complicated of a question, I'll defer to Melvin in the back of the room. So.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
So we were one of the early adopters of this program back 2010, 2011. The cost that you put up there,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, for somebody that's using this equipment every day, you're talking about output 2 and 3 times what you could do the old way of setting a base up, moving around, certainly if you're doing any sort of distance whatsoever. So this investment that we made as a state, I mean, we were way ahead of our time, and really a tremendous investment, and one that I just can't say enough about. Those 1,900 users, it would be interesting to survey that group and just ask, what does this mean to you and your business? A lot.
Some business creation as a result of it.
100%.
And, open source, I think that's worth mentioning as well. Open source, no fees. This is a public service.
Yeah, it is.
Just better information for public and private entities to work together.
So today, I mean, we use this tech for our drones, for our survey crews, equipment. We're running our equipment off of it. I mean, it's just a tremendous asset for the state of Missouri. I would hope that Illinois and Kansas would pay attention and make the similar investment, because it would save them a lot of money. So appreciate you and your team. And actually, funny story is I actually worked with Melvin getting set up back in that that time frame. So, but thank you and your team.
Well, one thing I will add, when I talked to George, he said the primary champion for the project was Dave Nichols. He was the assistant chief engineer back then. He said he really knew, he really saw the benefit of the system. So
That's huge. Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, congratulations. I want to echo Commissioner Boatwright's comments. Building on his comment that this is worth a lot, do the non-public, private sector, for-profit subscribers pay any kind of a fee?
right now it's totally free. We thought about that, but we just really haven't figured out a way to do that, and we don't know if it's the right way to go anyway, so. But,
Well, I'd be interested to learn more about why it wouldn't be. But, I mean, I'm not proposing a change here, but coming from the private sector, private sector beneficiaries here.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
to echo that sentiment, I mean, I don't think on anybody that's using this system, I mean, it's been used long enough at this point to where anybody using it knows the benefit. So having some sort of investment into it, I don't think would be an argument at all. So that may be a conversation that we open up at some point. A survey out to the folks using it would be a good start. But I think to echo Commissioner Erdman, I think there is a possibility here that we could offset some of those costs by actually charging some sort of fee for the use of the system.
Well, it
Just a
wouldn't
thought.
take much to offset $250,000.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So the question, I have a lot of questions. Last time I surveyed was a K&E with a plumb bob on it. But putting blue tops down I-64. But so are there other systems, because we use George Stock, I'm sure he ties into it. When they say they're doing GPS surveying, they surveyed our farm. They're out there with that piece of equipment. Are they using our system or is there another GPS system?
More than likely, you're using our system, so.
Really? Because they're charging me for that. The free enterprise system would indicate that they get charged a little bit, something for that. And I understood what you said a while ago, you don't need any control. So if you go out to a bridge, you don't have to look for a PK nail to get an elevation.
Look, it depends the type of survey you're doing. If you're doing topo work or boundary surveying, you really don't need to set up control because the virtual station will set that control. But if you're doing like, surveying on a bridge or something like that where you need to be super accurate, you'd pull out a total station set up on control and then do it that way. So
Yeah.
it depends what type of surveying you're doing.
Huh. So if you're in Kansas or Illinois, they're doing GPS surveying. What are they talking to their own satellites?
What they would do is they would probably set up a localized base. So they got to buy another piece of expensive equipment, set it up on a known point on the project,
Control.
and they can connect to that thing. But it's an expensive piece of equipment, time to set it up and all that, so.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
Ed, do you have a comment?
This is like having a car and not having to pay for gas.
So I think the discussion that's going on was the exact same discussion we had in the early days when we put these in. But the idea that we came to was we've got to get buy-in to see if people will use this. So we thought if we tried to offset our cost with subscription or something, we wouldn't get people to use it. So I think now that there may be some critical mass, it might be worth talking about. But I think the biggest benefit, and we got to keep light of this, we're doing this for us because the savings to MoDOT is huge. You know, instead of having 4-person survey crews, we do it with 2. We don't have to have people watching base stations and people stealing our equipment. You know, the person that's running that can do it. So it's probably worth discussion now that there's some critical mass, but in the beginning, we wanted buy-in,
Sure.
and we've got that.
Yeah, and at this point, we certainly have the buy-in. And, just to point out, that piece of equipment right there, the base station that you would have to buy in addition to that is between 30 and 40,000 to use with it. So you multiply that by the 1,900 users, it turns into a big number really quick. So it's a huge benefit to everybody that's using that system. So
I think the discussion about whether or not to charge, at some point, there'll be a break point in the future where some major upgrade in technology will be needed, and maybe to offset some of that capital outlay.
no doubt.
Certainly, the operating costs here prove out to the taxpayers already. But that's worthy of discussion at that point.
Thank you,
Well,
Kevin.
the reasoning Ed just gave, that's not lost on me. I mean, proof of concept, we've clearly proved the concept. That all makes perfect sense to me, but now that we are where we are, taxpayers have built an incredibly valuable asset here that the private sector enjoys at no cost. And it doesn't seem a stretch to me to, at least at this point going forward, or at some point going forward, to recover. I can't imagine any user who wouldn't gladly do that in exchange for not having to use their own system.
Thank you, Kevin. Great report. Next item on the agenda is a presentation regarding MoDOT's multimodal division. Jerica Holtzclaw is going to give a presentation.
Well, good morning. I really wish I would have brought some show and tell items, but so Kevin's going to be hard to follow this morning. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna, I'm Jerica Holtzclaw, the Director of the Multimodal Operations Division, and today I'm here to give you an overview and an update on the division. We manage the non-highway modes of transportation, so listed on the screen, you can see what those are: aviation, transit, freight waterways or ports, and rail. We work with cities and counties and regional authorities to plan improvements for these 4 modes of transportation. So today I'm going to highlight and kind of dive into each of those briefly. But before I do have a small show and tell. I do have some staff members here today that I would like to introduce you to. So the first one is Kyle LePage. He is over our aviation section. And with him today, I actually have our MoDOT pilot, which I know you guys know intimately, but Mr. Chuck Wilson, our pilot. And for transit, Christy Evers couldn't make it today, so we'll move on to Cheryl Ball, who's over Freight and Waterways, our ports section. And lastly, we have Troy Hughes, who's over our railroad section. So for this fiscal year, we have focused on 3 areas: transparent knowledge, expending funds, and finding efficiencies. With turnover of employees being so high, these focus areas are crucial to the stability of the division. Over the past couple of years, we have received increase in federal funds from the pandemic relief, particularly in aviation and transit. We also have some exciting news of potentially getting $25 million of state general revenue funds to focus on rail crossing safety. So now I'm going to dive into each of these modes, and I'm going to start with aviation. So most people don't really realize that we do have 120 public use airports around the state, which is pretty amazing. 77 of those are eligible for federal and state funds. 30 of those are small enough where they're only eligible for the state funds. We do have 9 larger federally funded airports around the state, which is like your Lambert, Kansas City International, Springfield. They get their federal funds directly from the FAA, so we don't manage their federal funds. They're large enough, they're direct recipients. We are fortunate in Missouri to have a dedicated state revenue tax stream for airports from the Aviation Trust Fund. These funds receive jet fuel tax proceeds, and these funds are primarily used for aviation projects and to support the aviation section within the division. This section manages both state and federal funded projects with 8 employees. Interesting here, this does kind of follow the MoDOT Road and Bridge program, what we do there with asset management. Airports do the same. So they actually manage their asset management from the center line of the runway and out. So projects that come off of that are like full pavement reconstruction, pavement maintenance, the lightings along the runway. So it's kind of hard to get a hangar if you have poor runway pavement. So they also do the asset management approach. The aviation staff actually serve in a project management role and oversee projects from planning, environmental, land acquisition, all the way through construction, working very closely with the airport's consultants. Our staff actually go out and do the safety inspections at all 120 public use airports once every 3 years as well. So the dollar amount and the number of federal programs have drastically increased over the past decade. So you can see on the screen, in 2012, we had 3 federal programs and about $15 million for Missouri. Fast forward to today, we have 10 programs with over $80 million. So pretty drastic increase for the federal funds in aviation. We have found it, though, to be a struggle to keep up with the significant increase with the staffing levels we have today. But what I can share with you on the federal level, the FAA is going through the reauthorization, is being considered right now, and it's due by the end of the federal fiscal year. And we are hopeful that the reauthorization will pass along some administrative funds to help offset this large increase. And also on the screen, I have listed there, in 2012, so over a decade ago, we did an economic impact study, and it found that airports support over 100,000 jobs in the state. We're getting ready to do another one of these, so it'll be interesting to see what data comes out of that and what the impact has grown over the past decade. So we'll bring those numbers back to you after we get this impact study, economic impact study completed. So let's move on to transit. Transit provides financial and technical assistance to those public transit and special mobility providers around the state. We work with 200 providers and with managing state and federal funds both, and serving general public transportation and those specific programs that target senior citizens and persons with disabilities. Like aviation, transit has also seen a significant rise in federal funds from the pandemic relief, but we have really struggled securing those transit vehicles with the supply chain shortages. We did, however, still deliver over 46 million trips last year, so it does have a significant impact on the state, and Missourians do rely heavily on public transportation for various needs. And there is some form of transit in every county within the state. So the Freight and Waterways section provides technical and financial assistance to develop and operate Missouri's ports, which we currently have 17 ports around the state. We also have over 1,000 miles of navigable river and 2 ferries in southeast Missouri. The Freight and Waterways section manages mainly state funds with an exception of a very small federal ferry boat program. So now I'm going to talk briefly about the types of money that the ports get typically. Ports typically get $800,000 for administrative costs, and those are distributed based on formula developed by in collaboration with those 17 ports. They also typically get around $11 million of state general revenue annually for capital improvements. These projects are selected through a collaborative process as well involving the port directors, where they rank each project and develop a fiscally constrained project list. The Freight Enhancement Program is also managed by this section, where it's money for capital improvements for all non-highway modes, and that's $3.25 million per year. There's also been some legislation this year to introduce and create a Waterways and Ports Trust Fund, and we've been supportive of that legislation as it will allow a longer period for construction. Right now, for that $11 million of general revenue for capital improvements, they have to use that within that year, so it really scrunches down the time that for construction. So this would allow multiple construction seasons. Okay, so moving on to rail. The rail section of the division is split into 2 sections. We have an operations section and a project section. The operations section, we have 6 federally certified inspectors in charge of rail safety by providing state and federal inspections. The team also manages Amtrak coordination for the state of Missouri, where we have the state-supported Missouri River Runner from Kansas City to St. Louis. The rail section also provides the federally required state safety oversight for the rail fixed guideway public transportation system, which is Metrolink, KC Streetcar, and the Delmar Loop Trolley in St. Louis. On the projects team, we manage the state and federal rail grade crossing safety improvements and do that coordination with the rail companies and for the MoDOT Road and Bridge program. So now I want to take just a minute to highlight rail crossing safety and what we are already doing in that area. Each year we get about $1.5 million from the grade crossing safety account, and those funds are generated by a 25-cent motor vehicle tax and renewal fees, plus we get $6 million of federal funds for rail safety. So in total, $7.5 million to focus on rail safety. So I want to put that in perspective. We currently have 3,300 public crossings around the state, over 3,300, and 1,422 of those are passive, like no lights and gates, just passive. And to upgrade a single one of those from passive to active is around $400,000 to $500,000. So we're faced with a $700 million issue facing us. So that $7.5 million really doesn't go that far each year to address this issue. So we were thrilled when Governor Parson announced in his State of the State address the $25 million of potential state general revenue funds to go towards focusing on this issue, and the $10 million of federal funds. So I also wanted to share with you, out of the 1,422 passive crossings we have around the state, 47 of them fall on a passenger rail line. We have already secured a consultant to take an independent look at the 47 locations for recommendations on how we can improve safety. These consultants are looking on a corridor approach, so it offers a more holistic approach to safety implementation. So on the map that you see on the screen, that's the 3,300 public crossings we have around the state. The darker orange color is the passive, or the 1,422 that do not have lights and gates. And you can see the 3 passenger rail lines there are highlighted. And so there's 47 of those that fall on the passenger rail lines that do not have lights and gates. So each year we also look at opportunities to apply for federal funds to focus on this issue as well, so we can leverage those state dollars to get more improvements completed. The federal grants do require a 20%, typically 20% match, and we get those matching dollars from the grade crossing safety account, which is about the $1.5 million per year. In Southwest Missouri, we have done just that. We were awarded 2 separate federal grants, and in combination will improve 4 crossings and close 13 crossings. So looking at it on a holistic basis and a corridor approach, we have found to be more palatable by the locals and more opportunities for improvements by looking on that corridor approach. We want this corridor approach to be a repeatable process so that we can also focus on freight rail corridors moving into the future. So that is my division update today. So do you guys have any comments or questions?
Anyone have any questions or comments?
So back to the jet fuel tax, how is that set?
Oh, Brenda may have to help me with that one. Jet fuel tax, how is it set?
How is that? It's a,
Statute.
it's set by statute and it's based upon, it's a sales tax rate.
Missouri statute or federal?
Missouri.
State.
State statute.
Do we know how much it is?
4.225.
What, how much?
4.2%.
And 3% goes into state aviation trust fund.
So 4% on a gallon, 4 cents?
No, it's on price.
It's a sales tax.
Sales tax.
Oh, it's a sales tax on the cost of the fuel.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good.
High fuel prices.
And those 30 airports, the smaller ones, they're only eligible for the state fund, so that's where we provide some of the funding for that.
Yeah. My point's always been, you never try to figure out what the tax is. When you're going to fill that thing up, you're going to come down and fill it up. And what about landing fees? Do we charge them? Because how do the FBOs relate into these public airports? Do they pay a fee, or are they just allowed to operate?
Actually, you might want to come up here, Kyle, if you got aviation detailed questions. This is Kyle, he's our manager of our aviation section. He's actually a pilot too, so that he's kind of got an interesting background.
Say, as far as the FBOs, that's worked out with the sponsor, the airport owner. They might pay a lease, or they get a cut of the fuel. And landing fees, that kind of goes, that's set by the sponsor, the municipality that owns the airport, and that's how they pay for, like a lot of our federal projects are 90% fed, 10% local. They'll use those fees to help make the match.
But the public airports are ours, or they are private?
They're private.
They're
So-
owned by the
Municipalities, yeah.
not the state.
Okay, so we don't own
No,
any.
we don't.
No.
Never mind.
That's unique to our division. We, help manage all these assets, and we don't own any of them.
That's right.
So, but if there's new ILS or something, we help with that?
Which,
Sorry. You went too quick, Kyle.
As far as like an ILS or instrument landing system or something, that would, we'd have to go through the FAA, and they would partner with us to, well, has to be eligible first and then justified second, and has to meet those two criteria. And then we'd go get federal funds to try to get that installed. But that money would come from the FAA, and they get their money from sales tax also on fuel and passenger seat charges, and that's where that revenue comes in.
Yeah. My last question, is there an update on the boat with the cargo? Last I heard, it was under construction, and they would only go as far north as Memphis.
the container on vessel.
Container.
Yeah.
On the JCPA, is that what you're asking about?
Because we gave Herculaneum got 25 million to increase that port there.
Yeah, for the JCPA project, they are under contract and invoicing has started, and it is a 90-10 project and is localized to the Herculaneum site, the last I've heard, for the scope of that project.
Right, but in terms of the what's happening with the development of container on vessel is what you're seeing. They're trying to develop landed spots where they will go to. Memphis is one of the early adopters, along with what's the port just north of New Orleans, Plaquemines, and so I think that's still to be developed, and they're still in concept and design of the vessels themselves. So it's still going to take some time for that to happen. I do think what's happening are ports up and down the river system are trying to make themselves attractive as a location for that type of vessel class.
And that was the intent of Herculaneum, wasn't it? Or was that for cement or something else?
I think there is a hope that that would be a site that would be one of those locations. I think that's part of it. There's really no guarantee yet. It's a developing new mode.
Commissioner Urban, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to the multimodal operations this is your first presentation while I've been on the commission. And I, not surprisingly, love hearing about multimodal operations. I'm sure my colleagues would be surprised and maybe a little disappointed if I didn't have something to say about rail grade crossing safety. Extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary to be able to do as many as 47 passive public crossings on the Amtrak routes if funded by the legislature would be nothing short of extraordinary. I've done grade crossings for 26 years, and if we can achieve that goal, that would be Herculean. I want to thank all the people working to get the diagnostics done ahead of schedule, be ready to go, and applaud the staff for having a forward-looking approach to that. As to the other grade crossings, we'll see how quickly and how much money it consumes to get the Amtrak routes done, which I think is a great idea. And there might be some left over for other projects. I just wonder about how long does it take from the time you work with the host railroad on a crossing? And by the way, I also want to applaud the corridor approach. That is the best way to do it. The most successful states that I'm familiar with do it on a corridor approach. I'm strongly in favor of that and applaud your effort. My question has to do with the time it takes from the time you reach agreement on a corridor approach to do the diagnostic, to get buy-in from the host railroad to where you're actually beginning installation at $500,000 plus a crossing. About how long does that take? And what process do we have to monitor that progress to make sure it moves along and stays on schedule?
Well, for this project, we're pushing the envelope and trying to get these done in the 1-year time frame for the 47 locations. That is our goal, to get those done. And Troy can speak to or give us an actual time frame of what it would have happened in the past for a normal project. But this one, we're on the spotlight here and trying to really crank down on the time frame because it's got the local road authority involved, the railroad company themselves, and MoDOT for these things. After we issue the administrative order, typically the railroad gets 1 year to do the installation part of it.
1 year?
Yes.
I just want Missourians to know what an incredibly aggressive schedule that is and what a benefit will be if we're successful.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments on the normal? I mean, he might be able to provide you with the normal schedule.
Yeah, I mean, normally, after we get the agreement in place with the railroad, I mean, they have to do final design, procurement of the materials. So we would typically give a railroad, 12 months to 18 months to complete the installation.
Is the biggest time lag in getting the agreement with the railroad?
Not necessarily. I think in the overall schedule, the biggest component is material procurement because, the equipment's special ordered for the location. So, tell people, you just can't go to Lowe's to get a set of signals. So they're specifically ordered, and just talking for this 47 crossings, I mean, typically maybe 3 to 6 months from when the railroad ordering the materials to when they might be available.
Well, I'll be interested, and I know my colleagues will be, in progress reports once the legislature makes its decision regarding the corridor approach, which I've already talked about. I really think that getting the agreement with the railroad is a big deal, and would like to be helpful in any way I could there because this is an extremely aggressive program. I'm sure also, and it's not lost on MoDOT, that sometimes crossing consolidations are part of a corridor plan. Those can be very difficult, and I recognize and appreciate that can be an uncontrollable time element in getting a crossing closed as part of a consolidation. and hope that local governments in Missouri will realize how important that is.
And I think, like you said, the consolidation approach, I mean, it's somewhat difficult, but generally with good public involvement, getting buy-in, like the two Christie projects, one of them in particular. I mean, the county itself is putting in $1 million to the project. I mean, along with the railroads putting in $1.5 million to make it possible for that cost share to bring. So, like I said, it's showing people that we're providing a better transportation system at the end of the day, even though they won't be able to cross the railroad tracks as they did in the past.
Great work, Patrick.
Any other comments? Thank you, Jerica. That's a great report. Next item on the agenda is a non-action item. Nicole Hood, State Highway Safety and Traffic Engineer, will provide a presentation about work zone awareness. Nicole?
Good morning, Chairman Ecker, Commissioners, Director McKenna. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss work zone safety with you. So as you well know, that busy time of year, the construction season is ramping up across the state, and Missouri is going to have record number of work zones this year, given that we have such a large program. So we're estimating actually over 20,000 work zones with maintenance and construction operations. So I'm super excited that we have the opportunity this year to host National Work Zone Awareness Week. The kickoff event is going to be April 18th during National Work Zone Awareness Week, and it will be at the Lieutenant Corporal Leon Durap's I-70 Missouri River Bridge, also known as the Roachport Bridge. So the kickoff will start at 10 a.m. and it will be streamed live on Facebook. And you can see that infographic over there on the right-hand side. That shows the theme for this year's Work Zone Awareness Week. It's you play a role in work zone safety, work with us. So what we're wanting to do is to remind travelers that anytime you encounter a work zone, that you need to make sure and realize to make safe choices, because you play a crucial role in the safety of the highway workers, but also in the safety of yourself as the driver. So we want folks to work with us. We want them to make smart decisions, safe decisions, not necessarily just in work zones, but all the time, so that we can all make it home safely. And I do want to note, before I forget, that Wednesday of Work Zone Awareness Week is Go Orange Day. So I'm wearing my orange outfit today, but I just want to emphasize on Wednesday, please wear orange so that we can raise awareness. Okay, so the reality, kind of just where we're at. So any day of the week, all hours of the day, unfortunately, we have the distracted driving. We have the impaired driving. We have speeding in our work zones. And honestly, the list, it just goes on and on. Now we have medical marijuana that's been legalized in Missouri. So we're doing our part as the Highway Safety and Traffic Division to educate drivers that it's not okay to drive high, and that if you feel different, you drive different. You can see here some of the numbers. So between 2018 and 22, we've had over 4,300 people that have been injured in our work zone crashes. Unfortunately, it's tragic to say, last year we had 15 people who were killed in work zones. We have, an additional 95 people who were seriously injured. We're continuing to have our protective devices, the TMAs, the truck and trailer mounted attenuators that are getting hit. We've had 36 TMA hits last year. I looked yesterday, we were at 17 already this year, which I think unfortunately we had one more. So we are on pace this year to be at a record high, which is where we were at a couple years ago. So the reality for our work zone highway workers out there, it can be scary. As I said, their lives are in the hands of others. I wanted to paint the picture here a little bit for you. These are some photos from a handful of crashes on the I-270 work zone, and this is a work zone that's posted at 50 miles per hour. So the photo on the left, it was a driver who was impaired, traveling too fast. They drove up the wall and got their vehicle struck, causing damage to the fence and wall, and then they ran from the police. That middle image is a photo from a work zone crash that unfortunately resulted in a fatality. The patrol reported that the driver was traveling around 90 miles per hour, and they rolled multiple times. And then the photo on the right, the driver crashed into a signal, causing the project team to close the intersection. Police said the driver was speeding, was impaired, The driver also ran from the crash and caused thousands of dollars of damage to our signal facility. So this is the reality. This is, the reality of what our folks are dealing with out there on the roadway. Last year, distracted driving contributed to 411 work zone crashes. That's why we're really trying to emphasize to folks to stay alert, pay attention. But we also are reminding our highway workers that they need to make sure that they expect the unexpected, because there are just a lot of risky driving behaviors out there. And we need drivers to slow down. Speeding involved in 13% of our work zone crashes. And as I said, we also need to keep our drivers safe. So drivers need to protect themselves. Last year in our work zones, we had over 70% of the people that were killed that were unbuckled. We know, as you said, Commissioner Brinkman, buckle up, phone down. Putting that seatbelt on is one of the simplest things you can do, and it is for sure the best defense in any crash. So I had a couple videos that I wanted to share with you. This first video is from a camera that was on our autonomous TMA. The research team was conducting some research last summer. And as I play this, you're going to see that the driver is distracted. They actually have a phone in their hand. And when they get closer, you're going to hear the horn of the TMA start to go off, the audible alert, because they thought they were going to get hit. The driver could have been FaceTiming, they could have been on a meeting, but you can see they continue. If you look closely there, you can see the phone up on the dashboard there. They're just holding it right in their hand. So they're very, very much distracted. And then I had another example that I wanted to share with you. This is just from a couple weeks ago. And so this is from a camera on the back of one of our TMAs. And once again, this is apparently distraction, because we have advanced shoulder warning trucks on the shoulder with lights and signs telling folks there is a work zone, there's a worker ahead. They get almost within 70 feet of this TMA, and then they finally realize they need to get over. But there was probably at least a half a mile of sight distance in this situation here, and plenty of room to get over. So yeah, that just happened last week. So what are some of the strategies? We have amazing folks here at MoDOT, and we have a lot of practices that are being put into play. A lot of these innovations are coming from the innovative minds of our employees. You all have heard us talk about the autonomous TMAs, but I want to just share with you a few updates. So we do have Southwest District and Kansas City District that are continuing the pilot on the autonomous TMAs. Kansas City District will be starting over with their testing, their open road testing, so they'll be out on the road real soon here. They had some software issues last season, so they're starting back over with that open road testing. The Southwest District has actually finished their on-the-road testing, so this summer they're going to be focusing on what do we need to be concentrating on if we actually do get to the point where we can remove that driver. So obviously, our whole goal and our point with this is that we want to be able to remove that driver from the back TMA. So I know I had the pleasure of being with several of you at the Sedalia State Fairgrounds a couple months ago, where we got to see the autonomous TMAs in action. And I was in the follower vehicle with David Upright, and he did give me permission to take a little bit of video footage, and then I asked if I could show this today. So here's some footage for those of you who haven't seen these in action. Oh, sorry, might be a little loud. So yeah, I was in the follower TMA, which I thought was really cool. You can see no hands on the wheel. You can see the connected vehicle technology there in the vehicle. Basically, the idea is it's a leader-follower system. Like I said, I'm in the follower. We're following basically the path of that TMA in front of us. We're kind of, they say there's, breadcrumbs that lead TMA leaves, and you continue to follow. Yeah, so what he was talking to. So he's basically emphasizing that steering wheel, all that movement is just an adjustment in the course so that we can follow that path in front of us. So I'm pretty excited about just the progress that we've made in that area. A lot of great things going on there.
Nicole, can you just mention, with that pilot that we're running, there are other pilots that are going on, but I think it's unique in Missouri. What our teams have been doing is trying to place this in an operational mode in active traffic. I mean, that's what we're after, because that's that rolling work zone, striping or otherwise, that's where our employees are at risk, and that's what we want to solve. So, I mean, it's been an extraordinary effort. Chris in Kansas City, David Eppright, a lot of leaders here. Some of this brought forward through the Innovations Challenge and then forwarded on for further investment. But Nicole and her team have been actively engaged in this as well. So.
Yep. And when he says, on the road, so the open road testing that I was talking about that Southwest has finished, but Kansas City will be doing this year, it will be with striping operations, and it will be out on the roadway. Of course, there will be a driver in that back TMA. Okay, some other strategies. So we just renewed our contract for the real-time digital alerts, and this is going to be it's on 500 of our MoDOT vehicles, so maintenance and emergency response. The way it works is if the lights are flipped on one of our trucks, then it will send a real-time alert to oncoming traffic. So if you have the Waze app on, if you have Apple Maps, there are some in-dashboard technologies that will give the alert to the drivers. So I would encourage you to use the Waze app. I would encourage you to use your Apple Maps. The more folks that we can give the alerts to in advance of these work zones, the better off we're all going to be, because the more safe we will be. And I actually looked, it's kind of hard to get the results on this data, but we did hear from our vendor as of April 21st, we have alerted over 8 million drivers with this technology. So certainly a good thing to be alerting the traveling public. We're continuing the temporary rumble strips. We also have our automated flagger devices, which you saw out on the parking lot this morning. So the intent with that automated flagger device, or what we also call TMA flagger, is to be able to get that human flagger off the roadway and put them in the cab of the driver. So we have 25 of those units now out around the state. And then I actually had some really good feedback a couple weeks ago from Minnesota DOT. So they actually have 2 of these TMA flaggers in their DOT, and they said they actually brought one of these to their statewide meeting, and it was the talk of the meeting because everyone was just, they're wanting to get these out there in the field for them too. So they're getting ready to go out to bid on their units, and they're using the exact same specifications as Missouri. So it's exciting to see our innovations grow across the nation. Smart work zones. An example of this that we currently have in play is on I-270. So we have what we call queue detection system. So on I-270 eastbound and westbound, there are multiple sensors along the roadway, but those sensors actually talk to the changeable message signs. So if traffic is actually slowed down at 25 miles per hour or less, then those sensors will tell those changeable message signs to display a message that says stop traffic ahead. If the traffic starts to move at 45 miles per hour, then the message will change to slow vehicles ahead. And then if the traffic is moving at normal speed, it just says work zone ahead, use caution. So there again, we're giving real-time information to travelers so that we can hopefully eliminate any potential crashes. And then, of course, we have just an amazing partnership with our enforcement agencies across the state. It really does go a long way to have them out there. Their presence was, helping enforce speeding, but also helping us with some of the backup on our queues. And then Director McKenna mentioned the safety response team. I can't speak enough about just the successes of the safety response team. I'm part of the work zone and highway safety section, and we meet on a weekly basis, and we have several field professionals from across the state on my team. Just to name a few of the accomplishments that we've made, one being the typical application, so making them more user-friendly, reader-friendly for the teams across the state. We are also enhancing the PPE, the personal protective equipment. And actually, Dana, if you want to come up here. But I have a picture on the right here just showing you the progression. So now our department only purchases the Class 3 PPE, and Dana's holding it up here, but basically now it has much more reflective material on it. If you look on the back, it also has the X on the back. Once again, reflective material makes our workers visible, and it has sleeves on it. So if the workers are out there working and they're moving, especially like at night or whatever, then drivers can see that, and it just enhances the safety of our team members. And then we also have the aero boards that you saw out on the back parking lot. That's an accomplishment that came out of the team that I'm on, and it's an enhancement of the aero boards. The one on the right is what we call a full matrix aero board, but you can see it just so much further back. So all good things and just a lot of accomplishments across the state from the SRT group. Buckle up, phone down. Of course, we can't stress that enough during work zone awareness and all during the construction season, as well as just work zone awareness and safety messaging. So I wanted to share, we do have a PSA that our communications team put together. This is urging drivers everywhere to put themselves in our workers' boots and to work with us. So I'll share this. This will be shared during Work Zone Awareness Week and all during the season.
See this sign? Then it's time to slow down. You're entering a work zone. Road work is dangerous work. Put yourself in their boots. Do your part to keep everyone safe. Buckle up. Put your phone down. And slow down when driving through work zones.
Work with us. You play a role in work zone safety.
So thanks to the communications team, Linda and your team, for creating the PSA, and also for all the amazing work they're doing to prepare for our National Work Zone Awareness Week kickoff event. And now I wanted to ask a few of my friends to come up here, if you don't mind. So these are some folks from the MoDOT family. And Eric and Dana, you guys can come over here if you want. Sorry, I changed my mind. I can see you better. Okay, so I asked, like I said, these folks from the MoDOT family to join me because I wanted to make this more personal because, as Director McKenna said, MoDOT is about the people. And, of course, at the end of the day, it really does mean a lot to have the people here with us and to have their presence, to see them instead of me just showing pictures to you all. So my why that I wanted to share with you all is that I absolutely want every highway worker to go home safely at the end of each day. And of course, I want every motorist who's driving through work zones to make it home safely every day. And we can't lose sight that MoDOT workers, their family members, their friends, their coworkers, these are folks who want to make it home to their loved ones. So I want to introduce first, I have Melanie and Amanda over here, and they both work at the Columbia Maintenance Building. Some of you met them earlier. Melanie is a maintenance supervisor, and Amanda is a maintenance crew leader. And Melanie actually is a mother of 5. She has 2 stepchildren. She has 3 grandbabies already, and she has 3 grandbabies on the way. So she has one due in May, August, and November. Very exciting. And then Amanda, she is a mother of 3. She has 3 daughters. She is a wife, and they're both wives. Amanda is actually a business owner because her husband owns a concrete business. And Amanda's actually in the middle of building a house. But I wanted to share these 2 as co-workers because they do work together day in and day out. They watch out for each other. Amanda actually, she went to Kansas City and she helped with litter pickup. So Amanda and Melanie have kind of had similar and just parallel careers. They've both raised young families when they've had to work late nights. They've had to be away. Amanda was just gone for a week in Kansas City, but they're coworkers. They're friends. They know about each other's families. They know about their likes and their dislikes. Melanie told me that Amanda loves to fish and that she actually wants to be there on the opening season of trout.
It was actually March 1st, and I did attend.
Awesome. Okay, very good. So yes, Amanda and Melanie are co-workers. They watch out for each other, and of course, they want to make it home safely at the end of every day. And then next I want to introduce, which several of you already have met him, Pedro Chaez, okay. and then his two beautiful 10-year-old twin daughters. And they have been amazing throughout the meeting, so thank you. But Pedro is a Jeff City maintenance supervisor, and when I called Pedro to ask him if he would join me, he kind of chuckled a little bit, and he said, "You know what? My daughters have always wanted to come to work with me." He said, he said they want to come to work with me, they want to help, and they want to see what I do. So I'm glad to have Jocelyn and Jasmine here today with us. And Pedro also shared that Jocelyn and Jasmine hear a lot about what he does. For example, when he comes home, at the end of the day and he's winding down and he's talking to his wife, he talks about some of the behaviors of the drivers out on the roadway, the fact that he sees people out there on their phone. He talks about the TMA hits. He also has to leave at different hours of the night as an emergency responder and be away from them. So he even told me that Jocelyn and Jasmine know what a TMA is at the young age of 10 years old. So I know that Jocelyn and Jasmine certainly want their dad to make it home safe at the end of every day, and Pedro certainly wants to be there for them too. And then last I asked Dana and Eric Kaiser if they would join me. So Dana, both obviously parts of our MoDOT family, but they're husband and wife. So Dana is the senior executive assistant to the director, and then Eric is the maintenance supervisor for the Lynn building. And Dana, she can have a tough role in her job. When I was asking her to come join me today, she mentioned that oftentimes if the director is not available because he's busy, he's in meetings, she can be that first point of contact that the districts have to call if there is some type of tragic situation or a horrific type of work zone crash. And Dana is very sensitive to that. She's very compassionate, and she understands and she gets it because her husband is out there every day. So she has had to take those calls, unfortunately, more than once. And Dana says one of the first things that she has to do after she receives that call is she has to call Eric, and she has to hear him, and she has to hear him say that he's okay. And sorry, I didn't mean to make that too emotional. But one of the things, too, about Eric and Dana is Eric has a brother who's a state trooper. And so not only do they deal with it on the highway side, but they also hear about all the stories of the speeding and all the risky behaviors of the drivers. So I don't know how his mother does it with having both a highway worker and an enforcement person out there. So I know for sure Dana wants Eric to make it home safely every day, and of course Eric wants Dana to make it there. But I thought it would make it more personal by having them here today. So I just want to remind everyone that during Work Zone Awareness Week, everyone needs to pay attention. Drive the speed limit, watch out for highway workers while they're out there, keeping the roads safe, and while they're out there maintaining them. Let's make every week Work Zone Awareness Week so that everyone can make it home safely, and let's put an end to the needless tragedies. Thank you all once again for joining me. Thanks. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Well, first of all, that's wonderful, that presentation.
Thank you.
I like the work with us. Who came up with that?
The work with us, actually, it was a communications division, and I know Taylor Bruni had a huge role in that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
The other comment I have, we bought the commissioner's jackets just recently. I have one in there. I'd like to show it to you, but it's the Highway State Patrol jacket. And those are reversible. We didn't buy the reversible, but I bought 400 for all of our employees. So when they're on the job site, they turn them inside out. And then when they go home, they turn them around the other way. They're real warm. And those jackets, we can get them way down below $100 a jacket. And it's a nice jacket, but it's that safety. And we could probably have our own orange or even that logo put on there or something.
Nice. Yeah.
It'd be nice. You're going to run out of spring here pretty quick, but for next year. And that rep is in St. Louis. I'm happy to put you in touch with him. And then the other question is, where do we buy that fabric you're wearing so that we can get a suit?
This was a special. No.
Did you buy the dress first and match the color, or did you get?
Yeah, no, I had in my mind that I wanted orange for Work Zone Awareness Week.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a reddish orange. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I probably should know this as the chairman of the CRS. How, do we know how that, we have 22% less? Is that our Show Me Zero kicking in, or do we have any ideas?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. So we are seeing that across the nation. Just the fatalities are starting to go down a little bit just across the nation. But I do think it's a combination of things. People are hearing the messaging, but we do still have a lot of those crazy drivers out there, and we just need to continue to educate folks.
Yeah.
So yes, your efforts are paying off, all the things that you're doing as the chairman of the executive committee.
You're carrying all the water. Thank you. That was a great presentation.
Commissioner Urban?
Yeah, well, thanks to all today. Tremendous work, tremendous safety benefits, and thanks to each of you. Amanda, thank you for coming to Kansas City for a week. On behalf of all Kansas Cityans, I want you to know how grateful we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comment? Yeah, let's get a picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, front and center.
Stand behind me, yeah.
I don't know. I may have to introduce her or introduce them when we get there.
Hey, Dad, you need to go over there with your daughter.
Put the orange dot.
Where'd you get that time?
Actually, my communications director in St. Louis, she brought it to me, said, you gotta wear this.
Nicole, thank you for that fantastic report, and your passion is always amazing when you make these presentations, so thank you, and we are a family, and I think it's a good approach, so thank you. So next we have an action item. Currently, the commission has two committees, the Audit Committee and the Legislative Committee. The commission also elects members to serve on the MoDOT and Patrol Employees Retirement System Board of Directors, EMPERS, and the Missouri Transportation Finance Corporation Board of Directors, MTFC. On the Audit Committee, we have a vacancy. As chairman, I appoint the members of this committee, and this time I would like to appoint Dustin Boatwright to the Audit Committee. Thank you for willing to serve, Dustin. On the MTFC board, we have a vacancy, and I nominate Commissioner Erdman to the MTFC board. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion regarding the nomination? If not, all those in favor of the nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. You're elected. Congratulations. Motion carries. Commissioner Erdman is elected as member of the board of the MTFC. Emperor's Board. I am choosing to step down from the Emperor's Board, which creates a vacancy that needs to be filled with a commission member. I nominate Commissioner Erdman to the Emperor's Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion regarding the nomination? Hearing none, all those in favor of the nomination signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say sign. Motion carries. Commissioner is elected as a member of the Emperor's Board of Trustees. Congratulations, everyone, and thanks for your willingness to serve on those important committees. Members of the public who do not schedule a public comment period. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up for public comment? All right. Typically, at the end of each meeting, we like to provide each commission member the opportunity to share any concerns or comments they may have. Today, I'm going to start with Commissioner Brinkman.
Yeah, I did not take any notes, but I think this is one of our better meetings with these presentations. And I'm amazed at our surveying system that it's open, because I know all the civil engineers are using it and had no idea that the state led that effort. And the TMA was really cool this morning. We never get to go up and touch those things, well, unless you hit one. But anyhow, it was a great meeting, and Pedro, thank you for bringing your daughters.
Commissioner Urban.
Well, thank you. Monday was the first day of a new innovative approach to helping keep our highways safe, clean, and identify homeless encampments. And I was very proud to see the first day of that. I want to thank Amanda again for kind of launching all of that with her efforts, and look forward to this new innovative third-party contract between MoDOT and the Downtown Community Improvement District being a big success. The other thing I want to note is sometimes some of the small things go unnoticed, particularly when they come to strategic things. And Director McKenna is really a master at that. I'm aware of some things recently where he found an innovative approach, an innovative compromise that gives rise to big things. And I want all Missourians to know how good Director McKenna is at finding strategic compromise.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, it's been a great meeting. Enjoyed all the presentations, especially Nicole's. This road safety is just should be a top priority, and I know it is. But until we get to zero and everybody can go home like Pedro every night safe to his family, until then we haven't got it fixed. So I don't understand people and the way they drive and their behavior, but appreciate, Nicole, all your hard work on it. Jerica, great presentation. All of the presentations, again, were good. I think we need to really, last night they had these tornadoes touch down and 2 or 3 deaths in Marble Hill, and we need to keep those people in our thoughts and prayers. So this weather's crazy, and just everybody be safe, and see you next month.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatwright.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to echo the comments of the rest of the commission, certainly the comments made by Commissioner Erdman on our director. The director, we're a little bit proud. Well, we're extremely proud to have him in Missouri, but we think he's the best director in the in the 50 states. So
Amen.
glad for him to be here and leading this team. Just an exciting time. My goodness, for us to have the investment that we have in front of us and have the team that we have to deliver it, it's just really exciting. So thanks everyone for tuning in today. Appreciate our partners in the construction industry, legislators across the street, the governor for just being a leader on infrastructure and workforce development. And again, thank you for being here and appreciate all you do.
Thank you. As always, everything's pretty much been covered by the time it gets to the chairman. But I would just like to thank everyone who made presentation today. Great job. I would like to thank all the MoDOT team members that are here, being part of the presentations and being present for the meeting. I mean, Nicole said it well. We are a family. And along that note, I just want to say on behalf of myself and the commission that our thoughts and prayers go out to the families that we recognized earlier in the meeting for their loss. It's a tough situation, and it's everybody be safe and buckle up, phone down on the way home today. So before we adjourn, I want to note that our next meeting is going to scheduled for May 3rd. We'll be here in Jeff City next month. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.